Hello, and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at. The numbers are in, and they're causing some to question if Chicago bet too big on casino revenue.
I'm deeply concerned.
An escalating and very public spat between Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson over shelter for migrants.
211 is a free 24/7, 365-day-a-year service.
And we take you inside a call center connecting Chicagoans to local resources. And now to some of today's top stories. A wake-up call for Boeing. United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby says the aircraft manufacturer needs to, quote, take real action to restore its reputation for quality. Once the world's leading aircraft manufacturer, Boeing has lost market share to Europe's Airbus after a series of production problems with its 737 MAX aircraft, including 2 fatal crashes. Most recently, a door plug on an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX 9 blew out mid-flight, leaving a large hole in the fuselage. The Federal Aviation Administration has now grounded those planes, of which United, Boeing's biggest customer, has 79. Keeping teenage girls out of the foster care system from becoming homeless, who are aging out of the foster care system. That's the goal of a new facility that opened in Blue Island today, the first of its kind in the nation. It's called Logan's Place.
The vision for this campus extends beyond this inaugural achievement. We aspire to open not only Logan's Place to full capacity this year, but also Kamari's Place, a vision that's close to our hearts. And to really make this dream a reality, we need your continued support.
Governor J.B. Pritzker was on hand to cut the ribbon at Up House's new transitional living facility that offers housing, education, and support services for up to 50 young women between 17 and a half and 21 years old. The Department of Children and Family Services will spend $3 million annually to pay for room, board, and program fees. Up House says 23,000 youth age out of foster care every year in the U.S., and 20% become instantly homeless. The blockbuster movie Oppenheimer topped the list of today's Oscar nominations with 13 nods. The man for whom the movie is named, J. Robert Oppenheimer, started the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists back in 1945, along with several University of Chicago scientists and Albert Einstein. They created the Doomsday Clock to convey global threats to humanity and the planet. And this year, scientists say the world is just as close to the figurative apocalypse as it was last year at 90 seconds to midnight.
Last year, we expressed amplified concern by moving the clock to 90 seconds to midnight, the closest to global catastrophe it has ever been. The risks of last year continue with unabated ferocity and continue to shape this year. Today, we once again set the Doomsday Clock to express a continuing and unprecedented level of risk.
The group points to the ongoing wars in Ukraine and Gaza, as well as climate change, 2023 being the Earth's hottest year on record, as reasons for this year's announcement. The group says the Doomsday Clock could have been turned back, but governments and people need to take urgent action. City of Big Shovels, Better Call Salt, and Control Salt Delete, just a few of the 50 names in the running for this year's You Name a Snowplow contest. The Departments of Street and Sand says the contest has moved into phase 2, so residents can vote on their favorites, choosing from, among others, Mies van der Snow, Ernie Snowbanks, or Ferris Bueller's Scrape Off. The top 6 vote getters will be featured on one snowplow in each of the city's 6 snow districts. For more on how to cast your ballot and the reminder of last year's winners, please visit our website. Coming up in the program, our Spotlight Politics team on the growing rift between City Hall and the governor's mansion. But first, the city's gamble on its first casino, right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
For 30 years, Chicago's mayors have been betting on a casino and whether it might be the answer to the city's budget woes. But new numbers indicate that gamble may not be paying off as hoped. The temporary casino in River North's Medina Temple brought in just over $3 million in tax revenue last year, almost $10 million short of what the Lightfoot administration projected. Here to dive into those numbers and developments with the planned permanent casino are Deborah Carroll, director of the Government Finance Research Center at the University of Illinois College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs, Alderman Brian Hopkins, whose ward includes the Gold Coast, Streeterville, and River North neighborhoods, and David Greising, president of the Better Government Association. We should mention we invited representatives from the city and Bally's Chicago to send a representative tonight, but they both declined. Thanks to the three of you for joining us. Deborah Carroll, let's start with you. Were you surprised by the casino's low profits?
Not at all. Certainly there are specific reasons why the profits came in lower than expected. They opened late. They weren't operating 24/7 initially. But I think we also need to consider the fact that the projections were likely overly optimistic. For the casino to have a true large economic impact on the city, it needs to be able to attract visitors to the city who would not otherwise come. And I think what's happening is that individuals are coming to visit the city for all of the great reasons that people want to come to Chicago and visit, and they're stepping into the casino to check things out because it's new and they want to see what it's like, but it's not the main focus of their visit and their trip, so they're spending less time and money there.
Sometimes it might be just a place to get out of the cold or the rain.
Indeed.
Alderman, same question to you. Were you surprised by this revelation?
No, I wasn't surprised. That's one of the reasons I was a handful of aldermen, including myself, who voted no on this proposal. We were told by the gaming industry that the projections were artificially high. That just characterizes the deceptiveness that I felt was part of this entire process that forced Bally's on us as the ultimate choice when we knew it was a mistake. Bally's was the wrong company, and Chicago and Halstead is the wrong location, and now that we're seeing the proof of that now.
David Greising, the temporary casino, as we mentioned, it opened several weeks later than planned. Do you think that contributed to the shortfall, or is it possible that the casino fell short because it's just the casino and it is not the big, massive entertainment and hotel venue that it's intended to become?
Yes and yes. Obviously, opening late hurts your year-end number, but the trends so far are not promising for the reasons that have been mentioned here. They also occur against the context of a gambling industry that is seeing kind of a division between those super big casinos like Rivers Casino and Des Plaines and the rest of the industry, which had a pretty good year last year, but that's against like a 10-year period during which revenues generally have been declining. So there's a huge question about saturation in the gambling market. Let's not forget that as part of the Bally's deal, there also is construction of several new casinos, and they're going to sap money away from the Chicago casino from people who live here, not the visitors who may be attracted to a downtown location.
New casinos in other parts of the state.
Correct, and around in Chicago in particular.
Okay. Deborah, what does a shortfall mean for the police and fire pensions that this is supposed to be funding?
Well, it's not good news, that's for sure. Using gambling revenues for something like financing pension funds is kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it can be very good because the tax revenue generated from those gambling activities will come from individuals who don't necessarily live in the city, and so that keeps taxes lower overall for those of us who are city residents. On the other hand, gambling revenues are very volatile and unpredictable, as we're seeing right now. And Mayor Johnson is depending just as much, even a little bit more, on these revenues for the police and fire pensions. And ultimately, it's the city's responsibility to make sure those pensions are funded. And if the gambling revenues don't come in, then we need to look to other sources.
Of course, there's the disappointing profits, but we also learned recently that Bally's hotel plans need to make a change for the permanent site along the Chicago River. David, what are the details there?
Well, Bally's initially was planning 500 hotel rooms. They still hope to build, their still public face still is that they're going to build 500 rooms altogether, but they're now splitting this up, and there are going to be about 100 rooms constructed initially. And if you read the tea leaves, you think it's a wait and see if they build the additional 400 rooms. The problem they have is that they've already made financial commitments. They did a sale and leaseback of the property, and that gave them about $500 million to work with for construction costs, but they have to begin paying rent on that property, and so they're going to be under a lot of pressure to build as quickly as they can in order to be able to meet those rent obligations.
And the reason that they've given for needing to relocate is to avoid damaging city water pipes in that location where the hotel is. And as you've mentioned, a 100-room hotel to open in 2026. They're saying the additional 400-room tower could be built on top of that hotel within 5 years. And obviously, we're waiting to hear from Bally's on, when that all might happen and what their plan is. Alderman, could this be serious enough to send the entire plan back to the City Council?
Well, I think it definitely indicates further review by the City Council. At a minimum, it has to go back to Plan Commission because it's a 30-acre site, and there was a very specific plan laid out for that site. And now we're told that it can't happen as it was originally planned. So it has to go back to Plan Commission. I think it should go back to the City Council as well, just because this rises to the level of a significant change. It raises questions. Why didn't they know this in the first place? There's been a lot of different plans for this site over the years. Some of the community groups that are involved in this knew that there were different utility conflicts. You've got Halsted and you've got Chicago, which are elevated structures there, and you've got a long history of industrial activity at that site. There could be some toxic contamination that hasn't been discovered. There's a whole lot of things that this raises that questions the due diligence that was done by the original applicant. It's one of the reasons why we said initially this was not a good site for the casino when there were better alternatives available.
So they are holding the line. They are claiming that they can keep going, that this is within the plan the council approved. But the alderman is right. This is a substantial change, and the politics of it are such that it's doubtful they're going to be able to get away with that.
So they're operating at the Medina Temple until 2026 with a temporary license. It's 3 years. That's the maximum amount of time that is allowed for a temporary license. But of course, a lot is promised with this entertainment complex. The big hotel, 11 restaurants, a 3,000-seat theater. Deborah, what if Bally's can't or does not deliver in the time frame that has been promised?
Well, I think with the full plan that has the ability to attract visitors, as I was saying before, who might not otherwise come visit the city. But as the plan begins to scale down and they're not able to deliver all of those things, that part of the revenue projections is going to continue to fall short.
Alderman, same question to you. What if they can't deliver? That's
a great question. They've already scaled down what they planned on spending from $1.7 billion down to $1.3 billion. I think at some point we have to start talking about whether they're in default in the agreement. We're not there yet, but we're moving in that direction. And if they do ever default on the agreement, again, there were other operators that had viable proposals that we should have chosen. So it may not be too late to correct this mistake and look at alternative companies that can do a better job.
David, we've got about 30 seconds left. Workers at the casino have also voted to unionize. This was expected, correct? It's part of the winning bid.
It was expected. It's important to note also this company is financially not super strong. Their stock is down by about 80% over the last couple of years, and they don't have a bunch of cash on hand. So being able to kind of like muscle through this problem is going to be a big challenge, and it raises additional questions about their ability to build out.
Yeah, and their bonds are currently trading at 65 cents on the dollar. So they are a company that's struggling financially.
Okay, lots more to discuss on this one. I'm sure we'll keep the conversation going. Deborah Carroll, Alderman Brian Hopkins, and David Greising, thanks to the three of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Up next, tensions are high between local officials over the migrant crisis. We'll tell you more right after this. Tensions rising between Mayor Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker over how the migrant crisis is being handled. A new ordinance could see gas heating banned in all new property construction in Chicago, and the cost of Chicago police misconduct is again making headlines. All that and more in this week's Spotlight Politics. Here now is, of course, our Spotlight Politics team, Amanda Vinicky, Heather Sharon, and Paris Schutz. Hey, team. So as we mentioned, clearly a rift between Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson over the handling of the migrants' influx into the city. Here's Pritzker yesterday when asked about Chicago not planning to add more shelter capacity.
I'm deeply concerned. We do not have enough shelter as it is in the city of Chicago. The city has not told the state where they would like us to put our resources to build new shelters or help them build new shelters. So we can't help if they don't identify those locations. And we need to make sure that we're not ending shelter capacity, as the city is now planning to do, at the end of winter.
So this tension's been brewing a little bit, Amanda. What is the main source of the friction here?
Brandis, I'm not sure that I can give you one main source because I think that there's just friction, period. I mean, this is a difficult problem, intractable in some ways, particularly without action on the federal level, as you have had a united front between the mayor and governor calling for Congress and President Biden to do more. So they're joint there. But beyond that, they've got this deadline sort of the DNC and needing to get that in order before the convention comes, when Chicago is supposed to put on a bright and shiny happy face. And then further, you have, of course, I mean, these are humans. So hopefully there is just pressure of it's cold, it's icy, it's terrible, do something. Where this stems, I don't know. You know, previously with the Lightfoot administration, there was talk of, personality conflict. I don't know that it's really that as much as it is true frustration between these two teams of getting something done, both seeming to point their fingers at the other side for why that isn't happening.
Heather, how is the Johnson administration responding to this? What's their position?
Well, their position is that Chicago has done more than their fair share in caring for the people sent to Chicago, many on buses paid for by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Brandon Johnson wants, yes, the federal government, but also the state government to sort of help Chicago handle that influx by sort of encouraging other areas to agree to house and care for these migrants. The issue is that Brandon Johnson is facing a very difficult decision in the next couple of weeks. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 migrants are going to get evicted, according to the city policy now in effect, and whether they sort of end up homeless on Chicago streets, I think, is a very real concern for Governor Pritzker. It sounds like Governor Pritzker is concerned that if the city does not continue to add shelter beds at the pace that it did before, a new influx of migrants, now it's slowed in the last couple of weeks, is going to really put the city back behind the 8 ball.
Paris, it doesn't seem like it's a good look to have the mayor and the governor in a very public spat, certainly ahead of the DNC, as Amanda mentioned. Is that a concern for either of them?
Yeah, and I think the governor probably anticipates an uptick in buses sent, especially as the months get warmer and we get closer to the DNC. But it's extraordinary, actually, to have a governor calling out the mayor of the same party in the biggest city in his state. We know that the governor and Lightfoot didn't really see eye to eye on a lot of things, but they didn't really go public this often. For him to go public, I think, means that the two camps are not they're not agreeing on what to do. They can't come to a meeting of the minds on how to handle this, or else why would they go public with this?
I mean, to expand a little bit on what we've talked about thus far, the governor's team says, Chicago, you say that you're shouldering all of this, but wait, we have taken care of, we provided the wraparound services, we provided an intake center, we are paying for shelter beds, we've offered to pay for more, and you're not telling us where to put them. We have done all of these things. So for Chicago to say, oh gosh, it's so tough on us when there wasn't enough money, the mayor has admitted in his own budget, not fair. So really, it's just both sides. Not good.
And it's a very tough situation as it is, obviously. Heather, moving on, a new ordinance expected to be introduced at City Council this week that will force all new construction to use electricity for heat and power rather than gas. Who's behind this and what's the proposal?
Well, Mayor Brandon Johnson has put the full force of the newly reconstituted Department of Environment behind this. And it's really designed to do two things. One, it's designed to protect Chicagoans from having to pay really exorbitant costs costs for natural gas, which we've seen go up significantly, but it's also designed to combat climate change because electricity, for the most part, is a cleaner source of power. So this would prevent new home construction and new commercial construction from installing gas appliances like dishwashers and furnaces and that sort of thing. Now, it would not require anyone who lives in the city of Chicago or any businesses to retrofit their businesses, which is why we heard from city officials today that this was a baby step, a reasonable first step. But People's Gas is very much against it, as you might imagine, and there is Local 150, the operating engineers unions, who don't want to see their members lose jobs installing these sort of gas hookups. So it's going to be a big fight, even though both New York and Los Angeles have similar laws on the books that passed without much controversy.
Paris, is this a given, or what's the opposition gonna
I think it's a test of where sort of the heart of city council lies. Is it dominated by the further progressive left, or maybe the more traditional left? Because as Heather mentioned, you saw some alder people preemptively come out against this ordinance yesterday in a press conference, and labor unions are a traditional source of power for a Democrat, especially the private sector unions or the trade unions. I would guess that there would be a majority support, but then you got to factor into the fold here. Does this mean more business for ComEd? Do Chicagoans feel good about giving like all this new business to ComEd? I mean, the law of unintended consequences here. Good intentions.
We'll see what the outcome might be. 30 seconds, another issue before the city council this week, Heather, how police officers accused of serious misconduct, how they're held accountable, and who gets the final say, police board or an independent arbitrator. Why is this back before the council?
Well, the independent arbitrator who first sort of created this controversy has reaffirmed his ruling that police officers have the right to choose to have an independent arbitrator to decide whether they'll be fired or suspended for up to a year. That decision now comes back to the city council, which will have another chance to either reaffirm or reverse that vote they took back before the first of the year. And then what is likely to be just a Donnybrook of legal fighting will commence that will really determine the city's ability to hold officers accused of serious misconduct accountable.
I always love it when a Heather Sharon story involves a Donnybrook. That is Spotlight. Heather Sharon, Amanda Binnicky, Paris Schutz. Thanks, gang. Up next, how a free service is aiding thousands of residents in Cook County. But first, a look at the weather.
Coverage of science and technology on Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Joel M. Friedman, president of the Alvin H. Baum Family Fund.
Have you heard of 211? It's a free hotline connecting people to everyday services, from where to find housing resources to utility payment assistance. Reporter Joanna Hernandez takes us inside the call center and tells us more.
Let me go ahead and try to see. Have you ever worked with Meals on Wheels at all?
Searching the internet can sometimes be overwhelming, especially when you're navigating through different websites looking for the right information.
Thank you for calling 211 Metro Chicago. This is Leisha. How may I assist you today?
The city's 211 hotline is working to make connecting Chicagoans with health and social service support easier. So tell me a little bit about where we're at.
So the space that we're currently in here houses our contact center. So all of our team members here play a role in our 211 operations in responding to the callers in need.
The 24-hour helpline is free and serves Chicago and suburban Cook County. It's essentially a referral service with an extensive database of organizations and businesses.
Would you say this is a game changer for Chicagoans?
So in my opinion, yes, the city of Chicago and Cook County is absolutely benefiting from 211 services being integrated into our system now, because typically when our community members have found themselves in need, we start off at, I don't know where to start, I don't know where to turn, I don't know which phone number to call, which organization provides the service that I need.
Desney Holmes is one of the resource navigators on the other end of the line.
Yes, I actually went to school for human services. That was what I want to do to make a difference.
Helping people?
Yes.
Holmes was able to help Derek Macon find assistance with his gas bill.
If she gave me this number here, if these people didn't answer here, she gave me another number, and I got a pad with all kind of numbers. I just kept calling.
Macon connected with a church where they helped him pay a portion of his utility bill.
I'm grateful for her. I really am. Because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have no gas today.
The president and CEO of United Way of Metro Chicago, Sean Garrett, spearheaded the initiative.
We like to say is those everyday emergencies that people are calling about. So it might be, housing, it might be food, it might be getting connected with the job, it might be utility assistance. But it really runs the whole gamut of human services.
It's a partnership between United Way, the city of Chicago, and Cook County.
The service is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have bilingual service, English and Spanish, but whatever language you call in on, we'll find somebody who can translate for you.
The center has been in operation for nearly a year, and Sean Garrett says he's hoping more people take advantage.
Because those resources are out there. It's how do we take individuals who are in a time of need and get them connected there through empathetic and caring people.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Joanna Hernandez.
We're told 211 has assisted over 100,000 people across Chicago and Cook County. And that's our show for this Monday night. Join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10 for Chicago Tonight Black Voices. How a proposed ordinance could impact local dollar stores and the community. And one-on-one with outgoing Cook County Forest Preserve Chief Arnold Randall, who stepped down today. Now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Stay healthy and safe and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm committed to giving back to the community through law and philanthropy.